You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Zach Baber and Brad Baber, criminal defense attorneys. Zach's actually also a high school football coach, and they help attorneys launch successful law practices located in Columbia City, Indiana. How are you both doing tonight?
I'm doing excellent. So, yeah. How about you,
I'm doing
Dan?
great.
That's awesome.
It's been a rough day. I spent a few hours at the jail meeting with a client, but I made it through.
Yeah, they let you out.
They let you out. What'd you do? No, I'm just kidding. Are you guys in like the room next to each other? No, I'm just kidding. Well, welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast. Happy to have you guys in. Seem like a fun couple of guys, and we're happy to have you part of our community here. And Zach, we shared your story today on social media. Like, you've got a lot going on. Just tell us where you're from.
So, I guess technically from Kentucky, but we moved around a lot. So, I don't know if I consider my home Indiana or Kentucky. But,
Okay.
yeah, originally from Kentucky. That's where both sides of my family's from, Kentucky. But we live in
awesome.
northeastern Indiana right now.
All right, and that's accurate, Brad. Are you from Kentucky too?
I am Eastern
Yep.
Central Kentucky. Grew up in a small town.
That's awesome, and you've stayed around the area as you're now in Indiana. You're practicing
Yes.
in Indiana. Are your licenses in Indiana, both of you?
Yes.
Correct.
Very cool. So I want to hear from both of you. We'll start with Zach. When did you know? Like, did you have a moment you knew you wanted to be a lawyer?
So, I can't remember a time I didn't want to be a lawyer.
Oh, okay.
Well, I take that back because actually growing up, I wanted to play in the NFL or be an attorney. That
Nice.
was kind of my two goals. I stopped growing at 5'8", so I kind of figured NFL route was not the route to
Yeah.
go. So yeah, ever since a young age, been around it my whole life and being around my dad, and he would, yeah, you'd introduce it to me early, and I just knew from day one that I can remember 5, 6, 7 years old. I knew that's what I was gonna do.
Yeah, and I hear that about, stop growing at 5'8", 5'9". I thought I was going to be the next Patrick Ewing, so
Oh yeah.
things happen, what are you going to do? So, and we move on, we can still love the game. So Brad, how about yourself? And Brad is Zach's dad, so we have a father-son combo on the show tonight. So tell us about, when you first wanted to become a lawyer. Was it a family thing or what?
It was not a family thing. I grew up in a family of 4 children. I was the youngest, and neither my dad or mom made it to college, but all 4 of us children, we graduated from college.
Wow.
My brother was a school teacher, and he was also my high school baseball coach. He was
Nice.
11 years old, or he's 11 years older than me. But I grew up watching Perry Mason, and
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever heard of a show called Paper Chase.
Oh, well, I'll tell you that there was a movie, 1973, The Paper Chase, one of my favorite probably my favorite legal movies that's out there.
Well, if you can,
Professor Kingsley,
Kingsfield.
Kingsfield.
Yep.
Love it. I made when I was dating. I'll just a little sidetrack. When I was
Yeah.
dating or engaged with my wife, now I made her watch it. It's such a long movie, but I just
Yes.
loved it. I don't know what it was, like the traditional Harvard Law School. Anyway, go ahead. There was a show called the Paper.
Yeah, exactly. And I forget what night of the week it came on, but they tracked a first-year law student, James Hart was the main
Yep.
character, and Professor Kingsfield, who he was scared to death of, his torts professor. And they went through their first year, second year, and third year of law school. And I just was enamored by
Right.
it. And
Right.
I was hooked. And so I knew right then I wanted to be an attorney, but I had the dream of playing Major League Baseball.
Okay.
And I grew up in a sports family, played football, basketball, and baseball, whatever
Awesome.
season it was.
Yeah.
Then I went to college on a baseball scholarship. But when I didn't make it, then I'd also applied for law school and got a scholarship. So
Wow.
went to law school.
Okay. Where did you go to undergrad?
I went to undergrad Campbellsville, and now it's
That's right. You played
Campbellsville
baseball.
University
You played
in
baseball.
southwestern Kentucky.
Okay. How about law school?
Chase Law School. Zach went to the same law school that I
Okay.
did. It's in northern Kentucky near Cincinnati.
That's amazing. I'd love to. I have actually, my brother-in-law lives in Cincinnati. I'd love to go out to Kentucky and check that out sometime. Mostly for the bourbon, but I think it would look like it would be a good, it'd be a good trip out there. So,
Yes.
no, it's very interesting. So you guys, both had a similar path. I mean, you played sports. You were really involved with that. With the sports thing, I want to kind of ask a question that has to do with sports to both of you. Either of you can jump in. Like, how do you feel being like in a competitive sports environment? And Zach, we know you're a high school football coach, which is awesome. Like, how do you think playing sports prepared you for like the competitiveness of being an attorney? Do you think there's any correlation between the two? And I'll just open that up to either of you.
I'll just say and Dad, you can chime in or say something after. The biggest thing I see is, especially football, it teaches you to show up. And I mean, no matter, you get beat down all the time. And just being willing to show up. So we're defense attorneys. So we
Yep.
deal with prosecutors, and most of them are nice to deal with, but some of them are, prosecutors.
Okay.
So I think it really geared it. I don't know if the competitiveness, I don't know, but just the fact that, yeah, we get beat down. We lose a lot as a criminal defense attorney. Our wins are usually plea deals that we worked out. It's not like, what happens on TV. So I think that's the biggest thing, especially football's prepared me for.
Yeah.
Law.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I'd agree with especially football. Of course, baseball, you go 0 for 6 and you got to get back up there again. And who knows? Then you might hit one out of the park. It's just about getting back in there, going out again. I can remember after I lost a jury trial in a drug case, and it was in front of a really good judge. He's retired now. He's a senior judge. But I really thought I had that one. And Zach, as a youngster, he ended up giving me my theory of the case of all, he was asking me one night, Dad, what are you working on? And I told him, well, I'm working on this case. What is it? And, but that's a story for another time. But lo and behold, I was sitting there after a 3-day jury trial, and I'm sitting there and I'm making some notes. I'm kind of bummed. I'm still in the courtroom. I think it's like 5:30, 6 o'clock. The courthouse is shutting down. And the judge comes back through the courtroom and sees that I'm there. Everybody else is cleared out. And he said, he goes, you just keep fighting. You just you get back up and you go at it again. And that sports, that mindset, I was raised a sports family. Hey, you get back in there and you go again, especially football. You get knocked down, you get back up and you go the next play, or you go the next game. That's what it's about. And so, yeah, you get beat down in this business. I mean, you get beat down by sometimes your client. You get beat down by their family.
Yep.
You get beat down by the system.
Right.
And, sometimes you're the lone ranger out there, and especially in criminal defense.
So speaking about that, like the clients, like what do you think it takes to be a good and effective criminal defense attorney? Like what kind of characteristics would you both say that help you, be effective and get the results that you want?
Zach, I'll take that one first.
Okay.
I think I think a good defensive back mentality helps, forgetting the last play, but staying focused, in the moment. And you got to be a good listener, because sometimes, clients just want you to listen to them.
Yeah.
And, I had that situation come up today, and I figured out a few minutes in, it didn't start that well. It's first meeting with a new client. And after a few minutes, I thought, Brad, just listen to the guy. Ended up being over a 2-hour meeting.
Wow.
But sometimes they just want you to listen. And, I told Zach early on, I said, most clients and most family members don't care so much about what you know. They care more about that you care for them, and you're out there, you're trying, you're doing your best. So I think that's the important thing, and the tenacity to stay with it. And I learned early on there's sometimes I'm going to have to work all night. Now, I can't do that at age 60 anymore. But there are times, hey, this stuff keeps piling up. These files are piling up. I got to get in there, and it's just a grind. You got to grind it out, and you got to stay on top of things, especially being in business for yourself, or it's going to
Sure.
snowball on you.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Zach, anything to add to that?
So, kind of piggybacking off that, because I was taught from a young age that you care about the clients. And I
Yep.
remember when we were, I'm not going to say specifics, but we might have been interviewed for something, and one of their knocks on us and the way we practice law is that we care too much. And I was literally told by a professor, it was a very good attorney in Cincinnati. He told me, he said, Zach, it's okay to love your clients. Like it
Yeah.
sounds weird to say, but it's okay. So I think a good attorney. Now it's a double-edged sword because when you care and put your heart into it, it hurts that much more. But I
Right.
think,
Right.
but especially for criminal defense, if you don't care about the client, if you don't care about their story, you're not, in my opinion, going to be as effective. So
Yeah,
What?
I've been told many times by judges and other attorneys, other people well intentioned, and prosecutors have told me that, Baber, you care too much.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I'll
That's
take.
that's interesting. They don't want you to get vested because you got to move on to the next and not,
Yep.
mhm.
be vested. But that's no. I think that's a fine approach. I mean, you can't help whether or not you're going to get invested, and you should care as an
Yes,
attorney.
right.
Are you? So is your town like? Is it? How's the bar there? Meaning like not the bar where I could go like drink some good bourbon, but like the bar like the Columbia City, Indiana. Like, what's the biggest city near you guys? I should have looked it up. I didn't. What's the biggest city? And like, is it more of like a smaller town or like what is it like?
It is. The city, I think, population is around 20,000. The county, I think, is a little over 30,000. It's near Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Okay.
So Fort Wayne, I think, is that the third largest city in
I think second
Indiana?
largest city in Indiana, which doesn't
Okay.
say a lot. It's
Yeah,
still
next to Indianapolis.
yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
we're close to there. We've got how many firms do we have, Zach?
Great question. Three, four, five, six.
Yeah. I
Um,
was president of the Bar Association for what, 12 or 14 years?
yeah, before they
Yeah.
stripped it away from you
Before they
last
stripped it
year,
away
right?
from me.
Why would they do that?
Well,
That wasn't because wait, Brad. That wasn't because you're a Cowboys fan, was it?
well, there,
No, I'm just kidding.
well, what happened? And I think it was 2010 or 12. I missed a meeting. It was, once a year get together, Christmas,
Yeah.
and I was at the jail meeting with clients. So like
Yeah.
11 o'clock that night. Well, about 8 o'clock, my phone starts getting blown up with all these text messages. And I told the judge, I told several other attorneys, do not nominate me for any offices, especially
Oh,
president.
wow. Okay.
I don't have time. I'm a one-man show.
Right. Right.
They start sending me all these messages. Hell to the chief. Hell to the chief. They
That's
elected me
amazing.
president. So I finally, after tearing into them, cussing them out,
Yeah.
all of them, I told them I'm never giving this up.
Yeah.
So I took it on, and I was president for 14 years. Finally, the sitting judge at circuit court said, "Hey, I think it's time to make a change."
Okay. All
So
right.
I finally stepped aside.
When was that? Was a while back. A few years.
No, just a
Yeah,
few
not long
months ago,
ago.
wasn't it, Zach?
Yep, just a few months
Well,
ago.
now you got more time to coach.
I do.
There you
See,
go.
That's awesome. So speaking of, you said you're a one man show. All right. So Zach, I'm going to ask you this: what was it like to start working for your dad as a clerk? Like, when did you do that, and like, how did you sort of make the transition into the firm?
So a lot of people, and I think dad even too, he kind of um you were well intentioned about it, but my dad kind of tried to steer me away a little bit from the practice of law just because of the weight kind of it takes on you. But it didn't deter me. And also for some reason, whatever, I know a lot of father and son teams don't get along, but I mean, dad and I bicker. We have a small office and we're yelling at each other across the
Yeah.
office. Usually nothing bad, but
Yeah.
yeah, we no whatever. But anyway, so yeah, so started just working with him 15 years ago. It was after my first year of college in 2009. I just asked him. I said, "Can I work with you this summer? Start working with you." I was already doing. Oh, there's your cat, Dad, and I
yeah.
was already doing research and stuff for him, but he let me come in the summer. So ever since then, I was working with him. And the great thing I had, because I was working for my dad, he literally would bring me to everything. So if he had negotiations with the prosecutor, he would bring me in the prosecutor's
Yeah.
office. He would
Yeah.
take me into the judge's chambers and all this stuff. So even before I got to practice law, I had so much experience
Mm.
just because of that alone. And I remember my first. So in Indiana, you're allowed to get your, I don't know the technical term, but a limited law license.
Mhm.
And my first time I argued actually in front of the judge was I was still in law school,
Hmm.
and I wrote my dad's argument for him. And on the way literally to the courthouse, my dad, I don't know if you remember this, dad, specifically, but he knew we kind of needed a Hail Mary. So on the way to the courthouse, he tells me, Zach, you're going to argue this one. So that was my first kind of throw into the actual getting to argue a case in front of the judge and stuff.
So what do you mean by a Hail Mary? Like he wanted to
We
send
had a plea deal worked out
Yeah.
where the guy had a pretty extensive prior record, and it was pretty much the judge was going to give him the max it allowed for in the plea. So, and the client kind of knew it too. So my dad just told the client like, "Hey, we think this is our best chance." The client, of course, trusted us. Like this is our best chance to try to get less time. And all I remember about it, I know I probably stammered and did whatever, but I think we did get what we wanted.
We
So,
did. He
so
did great.
we won, but yeah, that was the first. And looking back on it, I'm so glad you did that, Dad. Just threw me in there. So,
Well, I knew going over there, it kind of just on the walk over. And by the way, this is my cat, Addie. She was supposed to be Atticus Finch, her
Nice.
name, and she ended up being a girl. So we
Nice.
changed the name to Addie. So this is Addie.
Addie fan.
But anyway, on the way over the courthouse, I'm thinking, we're going to lose. We don't have a snowball's chance in hell
Yeah.
on this. And I
Right.
thought, wait a minute, Zach has his limited law license. He's written this argument. I'll just have him do it, and the judge will know it's his first case,
Yeah.
and he'll throw us a bone.
Right. Right.
And the look on his face,
Yeah.
I mean, Zach looked at me, and I could tell in his eyes, like he was excited.
I was
But on the other
petrified.
hand, he was petrified.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I bet.
he did great. I mean, Zach, you really did. I remember that like it was yesterday. So
That's awesome.
you did really great.
Thank you. So yeah, and then
We don't. I can't remember. I don't know if we've ever really. I know we've had disagreements, but I don't think we've ever been mad at each other.
no, and we'll have
Yeah.
like we had a 3-day jury trial, an armed robbery case, and I mean we'll just we'll just at there at the council table just kind of arguing our approach like on an objection, and I remember telling Dad, you just take this one.
Yeah.
And you won that our first
won
objection.
that.
We won that day.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
we didn't win an objection the whole trial.
But that's what you told the
finally-
judge.
I told the judge, I said, we come over here and we try this case here. And he was a former friend of mine. And we go over there and every ruling, how do you do it was a 4-day criminal trial. How do you
Yeah.
do a 4-day trial and you don't get a single objection in your favor? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I exploded in the courtroom.
Yeah.
But
I went off.
Really?
Yeah.
because
And that's
he
not
wanted,
like me.
he wanted
Yeah.
me to Zach. You got to go hard, Dad. You just take it. So because I was lead on that case, so I was handling everything.
But the
But
judge, I mean, he was just looking at me like, what in the world has happened to Baber? But it
Really?
was like, holy cow.
So you were
It
really
was
you were
controlled.
really upset.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
controlled anger. It was.
All right. Well, that's good. So like, obviously you guys get along working together. Like, what are you in court most of the time? And like, what kind of offenses do most people have? Like, that are coming to you for legal help?
So it depends on the day of the week. So early in the week, so we mainly practice in Whitley County. We do some stuff in surrounding counties in our area. So, but Mondays is court day. So mornings are change of police, sentencing hearings, and afternoon or some different stuff. Some child and need services cases, Department of Child Services cases. Tuesdays is what's called in our county pretrial conference days. So Mondays and Tuesdays are the court days.
Wow.
If you're in the court day, the rest of the week, it's if you have a scheduled jury trial.
Monday, that's kind of tough. Like Monday, I mean, especially after you're watching 12 hours of commercial-free football in the NFL.
Right.
I mean,
Uh-huh.
That's got to be tough to prepare for a Monday. But anyway, go ahead. Okay, so you have a scheduled calendar of.
Yeah.
All right, so
Yep.
you are in court. You have like a regular, you're taking these things to court, your clients. So tell us about some of the offenses, like any is it murder? Is it arson? Is it, like theft? Like what?
So
We
it's all
used
across.
to go ahead, Zach.
I was just gonna say, I mean, you can probably better answer that too, Dad. Well, I guess we could both answer that, but I mean, we take criminal offenses all the way from conversion, theft, OWIs. We had I guess I had my first murder case last year or the year before. So all the way up to murder. So it's all across the spectrum. Most offenses that are usually low level drug and alcohol offenses. So
Yes.
operating while intoxicated is what we call it in Indiana.
Hmm.
Then just possession. So or possession, dealing.
Hmm.
So those are most of the cases.
Okay.
I get a lot of domestic battery.
Yeah,
Hmm.
my dad has a knack. He's really good at those cases.
Well, thank
Okay.
you. We used to get a lot of sex offenses.
Okay.
We don't do as much court appointed. I did public defender work for years. I had the contract for a while. Zach shared in the contract. He had it for a while. Then we did conflict cases where the public defender was conflicted out, and then we were paid hourly by the county.
Okay.
We don't do as many of those nowadays. I can't. Maybe it's been a year or two since we had our last court appointed case. So we don't do as much of those anymore. We haven't been appointed on one recently, but some of those, I mean, they can be. We used to get a lot of sex offense cases, a lot of high level felony sex offense cases. But yeah, it's a variety. But I would say, yeah, most of the cases that we do now are somehow alcohol or drug related. And then I do get a lot of domestic battery cases. We have US 30 that runs from near Chicago, northern Indiana, all the way over to northern Ohio.
Okay.
So a lot of people get stopped for speeding, traffic infractions on US 30, and then that leads to, well, I smell marijuana. Well, they see some drugs in plain view.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we get a lot of cases off US 30.
So yeah,
Okay.
some advice: if you have drugs in the car and you're driving on 30, don't go through Whitley County.
Yep.
Yeah.
And don't
Okay.
speed. Don't speed.
You've heard it here first from the experts. So tell us about Build My Law Practice. Build your law practice without the guesswork. So what made you both start this initiative?
So funny story. It was about 3 months ago, and we're at our office, and something just I don't know what it was. I'm just sitting in the office, and about 30 seconds, I'm just having this random thought, and Dad walks by, and he's walking by the hallway we have, and I literally asked him. I just said, "Dad, do you have anything of value that you think you could give to attorneys starting their law practice?" And we're humble people, my dad and I. I think it comes across that way, but we just are. So his first thought was, and he said it out loud, well, I don't know. So he was wavering. I'm like, Dad, you've been doing this for 35 years. You've been running a solo practice for 30 years. Do you think you have something you could help somebody starting a solo practice? And he says, well, yeah. And I know that's the answer because, of course, he could. I said, okay, that's all I need to know. So pretty much at that point, it took me about 2.5 weeks of. So I have two kids. I don't know if I said that already, 4 and a 1 year old.
Hmm.
So the schedule's pretty tight. But for about 2.5 weeks there, I was staying up till 2 or 3 in the morning
Wow.
working on this program. And then we have our 4 year old, for some annoying reason, ever since a young age, he wakes up at 5 a.m. And he's always been a daddy's boy. So still does it. But anyway, so that was 2.5 weeks, and I finally got a rough draft of this program done. Should give it to Dad.
Yeah, I didn't know what was going on until
Yeah,
then.
he didn't know what was going on. I just said
I
okay,
said,
because
"What?
I
What?"
yeah I got what I needed from you. So created this thing, and so that took about 2.5 weeks. Then we spent a month together at that point, refining it, getting it to the point that we were happy to put it out there and launch it. So, and then we launched it just a few weeks ago. this year. And what it is, so it's a, I guess you call it a three structure kind of approach to teach people how to start and grow their law practice. So what we have in the program itself, there's the foundation of it is our classroom. And what that is so knowing that I'm a football coach, and if you go through the classroom, like the guides and stuff, I think it comes across because as a football coach, I want a playbook for everything. You know,
Mhm.
if I want to teach my quarterback how to read a defense, I literally want to be able to tell him, okay, this is what you do. You need to see if the corner's on, if there's a safety in the middle, is the middle open, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I want this playbook to be able to give my quarterback. So I got that same approach
That's
with,
awesome. That's
yeah,
super
so I
cool.
have that same approach with this, and I wanted to create a ton of playbooks to give people starting their law practice or just growing their law practice.
Okay.
But what it is, that's the foundation of the program. It's a bunch of these guides, or I call them playbooks, on this is how you do XYZ. This is how you do it. And then a step above that is because again, I think every good coach, you have that playbook, but there's gonna be things that come up that is not in there. I mean, it's just life. So it's not gonna cover everything. I think all of our playbooks, it's like 300 pages, and we have video lessons too.
Wow.
But there's going to be things in there, of course, we don't answer. So Dad and I wanted a second layer. So we have a community forum where if something's not covered, get in the community, ask us questions. We have a document sharing section.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, attorneys don't have to recreate the wheel.
Yep.
And then we also, on top of that, so the third layer of the program. So if there's something that comes up and the person doesn't know how to ask it in the community, doesn't know how to get the thought across or whatever, then we have live weekly coaching calls.
Right.
So question and answers where we can talk out their issues, talk through their problems. I'll be honest, we don't have the answer to everything. So there's going to be things that we don't know. But that's how we created the program to try to be able to help these attorneys. So you have the foundation, the second layer, then the third layer of those live weekly calls.
So who is it targeted for? Is it your jurisdiction specific, or can it be anyone because it's general sort of knowledge about how to launch a practice?
Yes, it can be anyone
Okay.
because yeah, the principles are still the same. Because we don't get into, I mean, we get into the ethical rules because that applies a lot to the actually creating a law firm.
Mhm.
So we do advise people, of course, when we talk about the specific rules, such as naming your law firm, make sure to look at your own state's ethical rules. But yeah, it applies to anywhere in the U.S. Yeah.
That's awesome. So how? And you said it's only been around for a few months.
So the program itself was just launched last month. So it's been around. The program, we've been working on it 3 months, and we're still, of course, working on it. So it's kind of a, I mean, just with anything with business,
Yeah, yeah,
there's always better practices out there. So we're continuing to find better ways to do things.
yeah. Congratulations. That's awesome. So is it an email group or what kind of a forum is it?
So what it is, are you familiar with the program School?
Yes. Yep.
SKOOL?
Sure am. I almost used school for Lawyer Stories Connect, but we decided to use
Okay.
Media Networks.
So that's the program is on that
That's
school.
great. Yeah, I've totally heard of it. Yep.
Yep. So it's an awesome, it literally has a classroom section and it has the
Okay.
community, and then we do the calendar section allows us to do the Zoom call. So it's a one-stop shop.
Okay.
And if you go to our website, we have a kind of behind the scenes, so we show people actually what it looks like,
Okay.
the
Do you
program itself.
think, are you kind of gearing it toward, well, obviously anybody who wants to launch a firm, right?
Mhm.
Okay. That's good. That's
So
good.
Yeah,
yeah,
if I'd had this starting out, oh my gosh.
What's that? If you had to start now?
If I would have had this
Oh,
when
yeah.
I started out,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh my gosh, it would have been a game changer.
Yeah.
and that's the
Oh, I
thing. Like
bet. I
Dad
bet.
and I talked about it a lot. Everything in the program, if you start your law firm and you make it 5 or 10 years, you're probably going to learn about everything in the program.
Yep.
What Dad and I want to do is give you those things a lot quicker than that.
Yep. Yep.
So,
That sounds awesome. So what else can you can you tell us about it? I mean, it's pretty new. You're probably things. I'm a big believer that things evolve. Like I've seen that with the brand that we're building here, especially with our community. Like now we have our brand new website that we launched this week. And we're starting to put our members on the website, and I think things evolve as you go.
So it's one of those things that because this community, we have this community, we don't want anybody on the community who doesn't want to be there. So
Mhm.
I'm very adamant about, so we do have an actual free community, and we put a lot of stuff in there.
Mm.
And we also, on top of the free community that we offer, we also allow a 7-day free trial to the paid program.
Okay.
So they can actually get on the inside, see what it's like, and then if it's not for them, back out. Because again, we don't want anybody who, yeah, you have everybody when they get into something, they have an idea of what it is.
Right.
Then once they're on the inside, they're like, okay, this may not be for me. We think it will be for the right person, but so that's how the free community is a big thing to us too, because and you know this because I think you guys have a listserv and
Yeah, we have a
newsletter.
listserv. Yep.
Yeah. So community is huge, especially when practicing law, because it's very isolating,
Mhm.
and especially as a solo attorney.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, I think I just but was just talking about the other day, maybe on LinkedIn, but
Yep.
this a silent majority, like a lot of attorneys don't realize they're in the majority. Like a lot of the feelings they feel early on starting a law practice,
Yeah.
the fear, all this stuff, they don't realize that the majority of attorneys feel that way because it's a silent majority.
So it's interesting, Zach, that you bring up LinkedIn because I was actually going to say, you do have some meaningful and very helpful posts on there. I was checking it out, and one of them was about the importance of self-reflection and trying to stop a negative cycle you might be in. So maybe you're referring to that.
So that's actually a different,
Okay.
that might have been the same post. That
Yep.
definitely could have been about reframing. I mean, that's
Yeah.
huge. I mean,
Yeah, just like stopping the cycle of kind of probably going down a negative rabbit hole and
yeah,
uh,
because I mean, any repeated thoughts over time become your beliefs,
mm,
and then those beliefs shape your actions. So you definitely have to make sure that what you have on repeat in your head is what you want on repeat.
yeah, yeah, definitely. No, it sounds like a good thing you've got going there. Do you want to add anything about it, Brad?
Well, I tell you what I've enjoyed about it. Zach and I, at the end of chapters, will do what do you call it, Zach? The bonus content, or what do you call it?
So it's the bonus content podcast, and I wanted to have a better name for it, and you were like, no, let's just call it the bonus content
That's
podcast.
cool. I like that.
So
So we sit and we talk, for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes it goes longer. And Zach will ask me questions about and have me tell stories about over the years. And most of these stories, I couldn't believe it. He hasn't heard them.
yeah,
So I know it's been fun telling him those stories, things that have happened that I remember. I was a Navy JAG attorney first 3 years out of law
Right.
school.
That's
So I have a
right.
lot of stories from that. And it's been fun telling those stories to him. So that can go on after I'm dead and gone. Those stories can be told to my grandkids and other people, and those can
Amazing.
live on. But that's been fun.
and
I've enjoyed
one really quick thing on that too, Dad. That looking back on it, whether this, no matter where it ends up, like you were talking about, things, yeah, evolve over time. It's been like kind of writing my dad's memoir. Now you're only 60. You have
Yeah.
yeah, many years to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just awesome getting to hear some of the stories that you've been through and stuff. Um,
Yeah. No, that's what, especially JAG. Congratulations on being a
Oh,
Navy
thank
JAG
you.
attorney. That's pretty amazing. I'm sure that got you ready for the private practice of law.
It did. I mean, as far as the toughness and some of the stuff that I had, I mean, it's throw you in, sink or swim.
Yeah.
And, you know, uh, yeah, it was very prepared me very well.
Yeah. I
right, and
mean, yeah. Go ahead.
oh no, go ahead. Sorry. Yep.
No, so I mean, I think if you have all these things to share, I always think it's a great great way to like get all this knowledge out and to document your knowledge and help other attorneys who are trying to, launch their own business. Zach, you also had a post about on LinkedIn about advice about talking about money and fees with clients. I don't know if you recall that one or you want to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I do remember that one because that was always a weird point, and
Yeah.
it's not as weird anymore because, but that was always weird early on because you, again, we care about our clients. It's what we do, so you have this very meaningful conversation
Yeah.
with a client, and they pretty much lay out their life story, and then you say, oh yeah, the retainer fees, whatever, 3 grand.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I want to tell young attorneys, you'll get used to it. Um, you're not going to be natural with it at first,
Right.
but I'm glad you brought that up too, because one of the biggest mistakes that we've seen attorneys make as they go the solo route of practice is because usually they'll start like the business side of law when they start going solo, and the practice of law is usually pretty close together. So
Right.
they focus on both right away. But usually, if they don't expand, they'll start focusing more on the practice of law and not much on the business side of law. And what I mean is, a lot of solo practices kind of forget a little bit that they're also running a business. And to me, a successful law practice or a successful business is if you were to pass away, God forbid, technically the systems in place and all that, the business could survive. So a lot of mistakes attorneys make early on is focus more on the practice of law, which again, you can be super successful that way. But if you get too far away from the business side of it, it's going to start creating so much unnecessary stress and anxiety. Like Dad talked about staying up till just three, all hours of the night, staying caught up. And one thing I thought
Yeah.
of too, real quick on if you want to realize, so the way I look at it is if you don't know that relationship, how far you are away from the business side of it, ask yourself if you're a solo practitioner, if you were, and again, this is more a bit, but I think attorneys, can handle it. But um, if you were to get told you have 1 week to live, could you bring, if, and assuming there's somebody willing and ready to take over your law practice, within that week, could you show them how everything runs? And within that week, could they be able to run your practice? If the answer is yes, then you have a business, in my opinion. If the answer is no, then you may need to work on some things to get to that point. So,
Okay. No, that's interesting. Um, so just to switch gears a little bit, this is a question for either of you. Give us some advice for an attorney who wants to launch their own firm.
you got it, Dad, or you want me to?
You
I
go
got
to it.
something. Huh?
Okay. You go to it.
So start with the end in mind. Um,
Mhm.
a lot of just anybody when especially attorneys when they're starting, they just want to start a practice and they
Mm.
have good reasons for it. Like, I want to control what cases I get. I want to, have more control of my time, which are good reasons to go solo, but figure out what you want. So have a clear vision. Like, not everybody wants to create a law firm that has a $2 million, $3 million revenue. Some people are starting a law practice in a small community. They just want to make whatever $100,000 a year in profit, and they're happy. Realizing that early on, oh, there's my cat in the background. Realizing that early on, it dictates a lot of the decisions you make for your firm. You're not trying to be like Joe Schmo down the street. You're trying to create the law firm that you want. And most attorneys never even ask that question. They just start a law practice and they just kind of go wherever with it.
I think
So
that's a great point. I think
start
that's
with the
great.
end in mind. So Dad,
Financially, sort of, right? Like the financial end, because then you'll know like what kind of cases you need and like what you're. I like that.
a
I think
thousand
that's really
percent.
solid advice. Um, so, how about you, Brad? Did you want to add to
Well,
that?
I think young attorneys get into trouble in general when they start their practice. They get into trouble taking cases that they have no business taking. You know,
Okay.
yeah, representing clients that they're not going to be able to accomplish what that client wants them to accomplish, unrealistic expectations. And they jump in and say, yeah, I can do this. Yeah, we can do that. And then 2 days later, like, how in the hell am I going to do that?
Yeah.
What have I gotten myself into? And we all make those mistakes of taking. Now, if you're court appointed to something, if you're doing criminal defense, you're court appointed, you don't have any choice. Okay. But taking cases as a private attorney, you have choices on cases you take.
Mm-hmm.
And I think last week I turned down maybe a couple of cases that I didn't feel like I was the right fit for the cases, or our firm wasn't. And I thought they'd be better suited by another attorney. And there's only a handful of attorneys that I refer cases to because I know what type of work that they'll provide for that client on those specific types of cases.
Okay.
But I think a young attorney, you're so pressured, you've got to pay you got to buy groceries. You got to pay the overhead. You got to pay the rent. You got to do this, that. And I get it. Mm-hmm. But if you set yourself up for taking everything that walks in the door, you're going to spend 80% of your time working and spinning your wheels on things that, number one, you don't like, you don't enjoy, and number two, on things that give you headaches and you end up with an ulcer or other health problems. If attorneys will focus on the cases, number one, they want to take, and areas that they like and they feel like, they're knowledgeable in, you're much better off, longevity wise, and avoid that of, it's pretty hard. You're running your practice and there's $5,000 in cash laying on the table. That person says, I want you, Mr. Baber. It's pretty difficult sometimes to say, well, I'm not the right person, or you're going to be better suited for this individual.
Yeah, so I think that's very honorable too. It's an honorable approach. So give us some tips on how to avoid burnout as a lawyer.
So, I hate the word, and at the same time I like it because it's exactly what it is. It's the word systems, not burnout. The word I was about to say, systems. But I want to make, when I say systems, it's repeatable, sustainable practices. So, pretty much to create a successful law practice and, in our opinion, prevent burnout, you got to have clear vision, systems, and clients. And really, systems is throughout. So, and again, when I say systems, I'm not talking about like big software. You have to have law firm management stuff, such as my case or Clio, even though, you should, in a lot of cases, have those. But anyways, I'm talking about simple things. Like, you don't need to reinvent the wheel every time you do a client onboarding. Every time you do when you have client management, you need to have systems in place. Okay, once somebody hires you, until that case is over, already have systems in place, repeatable, sustainable practices that you don't have to think about. So whether it's, I'm going to update my client every 2 weeks, even if there's nothing new on the case. So already have these things put into place for every facet, because the less time you're actually spending, trying something new every time, the more time you can actually focus on practicing law.
Yeah.
Most of us want to do anyways.
Yep, that makes sense. It's good.
I think that's good. I guess my answer would go into having other interests.
Having a third thing, that's huge.
Yeah, I think I enjoy feeding birds and watching birds, getting out in wildlife. Out this morning feeding my birds and looking at deer in the back.
Okay.
And
all right.
that's, I enjoy that. I enjoy watching TV series, getting lost in a TV or getting lost in a book, listening to podcasts, other outlets not related to the practice of law. Exercise. Some people exercise, walks, music. Some people, are good musicians. So, I'm a self-taught harmonica player. I think awesome. I think I'm pretty damn good. Most people say I'm pitiful.
That's awesome.
So it's just having different outlets. Going on vacations. I think vacations are very important. shutting the phone down, getting away. For me, I love to get away to a beach vacation, get away to Cancun or
There you
Aruba or Dominican Republic, Punta Cana. It's just, you just forget about life, so to speak, for a week. And the only thing you're thinking about is what drink you're going to have next, or what food you're going to eat, or am I going to go to the beach, or am I going to go to the pool? It's just, I can't tell you how much that has helped me down through the years to make vacation and shut down time a priority.
How many vacations do you think you need a year? Like 2?
Me?
Help you, yeah.
Well, I haven't had one for going on 2 years now, so I'm due. I joined a vacation club, and I used to take 2 or 3 a year. Was my goal, was 3 or 4. But right now at my age, 3 would really help me. But I think 2 is really good. 1 to 2 a year.
Brad, to be honest, I was hoping you were going to say like 6.
Oh yeah, I think you did 6. Man.
Not that I could ever do that, but it would make me feel better that would seem like the right amount of vacations we should be taking.
Benny, when I was in law school and I was clerking for this firm, there was an attorney. He practiced. He was did torts law, and he was in this firm that I worked for. And I mean, he dressed, I know those were $2,000 suits. And I mean, he looked great. He had long black hair, and he had a vacation planned every 2 months.
Wow. Okay.
He was gone for a week every 2 months. And these were
law school?
I was in law school, and this firm that I clerked for in Covington, Kentucky, he went on lavish trips.
Wow.
Once he was making big money.
What kind of firm was it? Like PI?
He did personal injury. Yeah. There was somebody else that did, estate work. There was someone else that did criminal. It was a wide variety. Someone else did family law. He did only personal injury cases.
Did you guys ever think about going into personal injury? Or has it always been defense? Brad, I guess I would start with you because, you really started the firm. So,
well, I became an attorney, watching Paper Chase, but also watching Perry Mason, other shows.
Right. Okay.
I wanted to be criminal defense. And then when I got in the Navy, that's primarily what I did.
Okay.
So I did go to work for a firm shortly after I got out of out of the Navy, and I had to do everything: tax, family law. I felt like I was committing malpractice every day.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I did. I didn't know what I was lost. And
so what do you do? Just like they give you an assignment, you do it, and then like hide it under the desk until they ask for it again.
Yeah, it was like, oh, this is I don't know what I'm doing. Or I'd go to a court hearing and literally and you'd read the law and think, gosh, how am I going to keep up with 6 areas of the law? And I realized after a year and a half, I can't. And that's when I went out on my own. I made my decision literally on one day that I'm leaving and went out on my own.
Yeah, no, that and I wanted to kind of parlay that into another question, which is, so tell us why, both of you, the such a love for service and helping people, criminal defense, football coaches, now build my law practice. So like you guys obviously like internally like want to help people. Like that's what you're doing here. So like why such a love of service in that regard?
So I want to know from you, Dad, because it's what I was taught. From a very early age, Dad these people who, were accused of doing terrible things. He would tell me about some of their life stories, and I just, from a very early age, wanted to fight for these people. They had most of these people who end up, whatever, they have nobody to fight for them. So it's, Dad, you taught me that. I don't know, you taught me about the service thing early on. So that's pretty much service, family service, and fun are the 3 things that guide all my decisions. Service being number 2. So, and Dad, so I would love to hear how you.
Well, I felt like when I started out in the practice of law after the Navy, I felt like most of the people that I was representing, a lot of them were court appointed. I found out very few of them had anybody in their life that cared for them. And very few of them ever had a stable home life growing up. Some of them, I don't know if they were ever told that they were loved by a parent or someone. And they didn't know that they mattered. And I guess I felt like I could be that person to try to help them. And no, early on it was overwhelming because I couldn't just rectify everything, but I could help them in a specific situation and help them, maybe give them some hope. And it was rewarding, when you would see someone that would maybe come back and say, you made a difference.
Yeah, I bet.
And hey, I've started thinking about that. For the last probably, I was introduced to a book in 2007 called The Secret, and it just literally transformed my life. I've read it like 15 times. I read out of it probably almost daily, and I recommend it to everybody that I meet and every client. And I can't tell you how many stories, how many lives have changed just by people changing the way they think about themselves and their situation and the things that they've manifested in their life. But it's just been transforming. But to be involved in somebody's life and help them turn it around, and some people make huge leaps and bounds, that's really satisfying. It really is. And to know that you had a part in that. So I don't know. It's just rewarding. It's something beyond something that you can describe.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That really means a lot to you, and I'm sure to Zach as well. Is there anything else related to that, Zach, or no?
The one thing I would add is so somebody told me, I can't remember who it was, but if you want to change the world, change the kids. So that's one of the reasons I got into coaching,
Yeah.
to
Awesome.
help. Yeah, as another, again, service-based thing, but yeah, wanting to serve others and adults. We're adults. We're only going to change so much, but
Yep.
being good role models around younger people, especially during those I'm actually around like middle school and high school age. That just, yeah. So that's all I would add. Just the service, being able to, I don't know how much I serve them, but at least being there for them.
Yeah, that's amazing. Zach and Brad, did I leave anything out tonight that you wanted to add? Any other advice? Anything else about build your law practice? Anything that we missed?
The only thing I would add, just because I don't think I've said it, you might have said it, but it's all you do, buildmylawpractice.com is where
Okay.
you find us. And if you go there, my LinkedIn page is on there if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. But on there, you can join the free community. And to join the free community, it's called the Solo Practice Network. It's for anybody in the solo practice of law, but also anybody who is aspiring to be there at some point. So don't just think, oh, I don't want to be a solo practicing attorney for another year or two. If you're considering at all, yeah, like I said, we want people in there so people can actually collaborate on the law management side of practicing law.
Okay.
So, and it's also for third year law students, but it's buildmylawpractice.com. There's a big yellow button. Just click join the solo practice network, and that's how you find us.
That's awesome. Thanks, Brad. Anything else?
Well, I had an interesting conversation a few weeks ago with a young attorney who was getting ready to have a hearing, a criminal defense hearing. I think it's a motion to suppress. He had never had one, and he hadn't done his first jury trial yet, and he was new to the bar. And he was sitting around, and there was another attorney, maybe that had practiced. I'm guessing she's been practicing maybe 10 or 15 years. And I was sitting there waiting on a hearing, but we were out, not in the courtroom. And he was talking about, well, yeah, I'm just really, he wouldn't come out and say it, but he was nervous. He was nervous. He was scared, whatever you want to call it. And, I just looked at him and I said, I still get nervous before a change of plea hearing, before the simplest, even when you have a plea deal worked out or whatever. He looked at me, his eyes got big. He goes, "You do?" I said, "Oh, yeah. Yeah." I said, if you care about your client and you've had to prepare something, yeah, you're going to be nervous. And, I said, I don't think I'm ready unless I'm a little bit nervous,
Sure.
And so when I said that to him and the other attorney said, she goes, "Yeah, I get nervous too." And he goes, "You do?" But we were just real with each other.
That's awesome. Yeah,
So I think when attorneys are just real, hey,
yeah.
we're scared to death.
That's
I mean,
it.
trying these big cases, you're literally scared to death.
Yeah.
But you do the best you can and you fight for that person. And, and I think if other attorneys know that and we're real with each other, we can really help more attorneys.
That's
No.
awesome. I love it. Well,
Yeah.
that's one of the premise of lawyer stories, like sharing your story, like being a little vulnerable, not being weak. I like to say, like, we're not trying to make our attorneys weak, but I think people can connect, like, in certain ways when they open up a little bit, tell you about their background, tell you about their challenges. You never know who, I swear, you never know who around the world is reading whatever you've gone through, So I think I think that's great, Brad. I think that's like a great, like, tidbit and story about you telling this kid. You could have easily been some guy who was like, it's nothing, whatever. That's nothing. You'll be fine. But you were real, and we probably felt 10 times, 100 times better. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. So, fellas, it was great having you on tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Hope you enjoyed the conversation. Is there anything else?
I don't think. What about it, Zach?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, you guys stay there. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves.